Alright guys, such comic again. I hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. The CDL is back in action this evening. OpTic Texas play 2 games this weekend. If they win both, they get to 4-0. One is against a nemesis team for them in Miami tonight, and they play PRED's team in the New Vegas Falcons. But scrims again happening on stream yesterday against Kenny's Minnesota Rocket, and of course Los Angeles Thieves, a team they seem to scrim a lot and are playing some of the best cards in the game right now. Dashy was having an absolute masterclass last night. Not exactly winning every map though. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I greatly appreciate it. Plenty to get into today. Starting here, I thought was pretty funny. I mean, yeah, it's funny. If you don't laugh, you'll cry type thing. Because aBeZy yesterday was talking about players quitting and everything, and the associated struggles were keeping up to date with Challengers numbers. And then yesterday, there was this match that happens in the European Challenger side, where before the game had even ended, this entire team quit out of the lobby. So after aBeZy did the statement about, look guys, you know, please don't leave the game, like it's the least you can do type thing, all the boys just decided that they were going to rage quit before the series was even over. And he was in the replies being like, what is going on here? So yeah, feel bad for us on this one. The other big update yesterday though was on PaulEhx. So of course he was released by the Minnesota Rocket. Recently he had a couple of good stints in the CDL. This most recent one was, you know, he earned the opportunity with what he did in Challengers towards the end of last season. It didn't really work out this season on Rocket, but I think he was a solid player, right? I mean, ever since he subbed in for London, like in early Vanguard, when Gizmo went back home, Paul came in, he looked good. Then he got that opportunity on, of course, the subliners that he very much made the most of. And as he says, I appreciate everyone who has supported me throughout my career, but I fear it's time for a change. I got to live my dream, meet my idols, travel places I never thought I would have. Thank you guys, everything. So I thought it was nice for PaulEhx, really. I think he's probably called it a day at the right time. I know that there's, you know, some players that it's like what GodRx did, right? Now, I'm not saying that GodRx, I think Paul was maybe better this season than GodRx was on that stint on the Ravens. But the point being that GodRx, after the stint was over, he recognised that getting another opportunity was, if it was ever going to happen, it was going to happen a long time down the line. And Paul recognises maybe that, yeah, he's had a good couple of stints, he's had a good run. You know, he's an event winner at the end of the day, more than many players can say. He won the Pro-Am with the Subliners team alongside Khhx, the greatest ever, and HyDra, who, you know, in a few years may be considered in a similar kind of conversation, right? So, you know, Paul achieved more than most players who have competed will ever do, and, you know, he's announcing his retirement officially yesterday. He also lives on in some regard. I know that some of you guys will predict or preempt what I'm going to be saying here, but he lives on through this meme. If you guys aren't aware, this is like, this picture every so often, I mean, like I love Paul. I think he's a great guy. We can't not mention this because it is part of PaulEx's legacy. So this obviously isn't the original image, but I forget who edited this together. But this image occasionally does the rounds on like just social media in general, obviously, not just in the COD Esports space. And it is Paul, like, edited severely, right? So, you know, he'll live on some regards. But obviously he's going to still compete, right? Because he's going to compete in Warzone, and hopefully that works out well for him, right? It's pretty exciting to see what could happen next over there. Speaking of these other leagues, this is pretty interesting, right? So there is a Saudi league, and the Saudi E-League in Call of Duty, and the Falcons have a team, obviously, in this league. And can you believe it? Khhx is playing on that team. Now, I can believe it. It just seems pretty unfortunate maybe that this is how it is, whereas Khhx potentially could be on the actual CDL Vegas Falcons team, because he's clearly, you know, he can compete. It's not like anything has happened that prevents him from competing. Maybe something has happened that prevents him from competing easily in the USA. You know, there was talk about him going home for family-related reasons, and maybe there are reasons that he would prefer to stay there in Saudi and play there, and presumably win quite a lot of prize money in the Saudi league, than come back to the US and play with those guys. I know that there is people that say, well, look, if you, let's say, traded Priester for Khhx and brought him back in and kept Xnid with PRED and maybe Arcetes and figure it out from there, that could be an upgrade on some level. Khhx is clearly a talented player. We saw that earlier in the season when he played at the very start of the year. But as he says, not sure why more NAEU challengers don't try and get a team over there, get on a team over there. If the info that I gave is, or that I was given is correct, they can have 2 foreigners on each team. Something like 3 to 4 events, and champs can win 100k or something if you win them all. So yeah, interesting assessment really. And here's Khhx playing in the Saudi League. But apparently if you're a player from Europe or even from North America, it's possible to actually go over to Saudi, get on a team there. You probably can't have a team it's got to be like a majority Saudi team, or as he mentioned, maybe 2 out of the 4 players can be non-Saudi. But, you know, you could go over there, join a team, and play in the Saudi league, basically. And if you win everything, you win a fair bit of money. So something to think about anyway. But yeah, this tweet was doing the rounds because here's Khhx playing in the Saudi league, and people were like, oh, come on, man, can you not come back to the US and play for Falcons? They might need him right now. So that's some of the discussion that was happening there last night. But also, we had some scrims. So OpTic, they were having a couple of scrim sets yesterday, one of which was against the Minnesota Rocker. The next one was against Thieves, and both of these scrim sets very interesting against what are probably increasingly good teams. I think OpTic are improving their level as well. They're presumably getting better and better. I think we'll see some evidence of that this weekend. But Rocker should be in a similar boat. Of course, PaulEhx was not the greatest. Kenny is an upgrade, right? I mean, there's no doubt about that in my eyes, and an upgrade presumably in multiple categories. I mean, it was a talking point with Rocker from the very start of the season that they, you know, needed a player like Kenny. Of course, at the time, it was never a consideration for actually getting Kenny. But there was talk about, okay, they probably need some sort of leader in that AR position alongside Geo. You know, was Paul ever going to be the guy in the longer term? Maybe not. We talked about Felony and other options as well as the season was ongoing. But then, of course, Kenny became an option and Minnesota Rocker got the job done. So it was 4-4 last night. They played 5 hard points and 3 controls, as is usually the case. And this was a competitive series. People that watched the whole thing tended to give the impression that OpTic probably should have won more of these maps than they actually did. There was a couple that, you know, there's a feeling that they kind of squandered. And the maps that they won were relatively impressive at the end of the day. The maps they lost were relatively close. But yeah, Radiation put together all of the screenshots for this, just so you guys can see that especially Dashy was on fire this series. And he's been on fire a lot lately, and there's been a bit of debate on this really. Who is the best player on OpTic Texas right now? I think as good as that Skyz I think Skyz has actually been a pretty underrated player throughout his career. He's a world champion after all. I don't think he or anyone really would consider Skyz to be the best on OpTic Texas right now. So that leaves 3 options. In terms of like the most talented, highest ceiling, I mean, it's still almost impossible to look past Shotzzy on some level, like from an overall perspective. But in terms of who is the best player right now on this specific game, I think it is maybe a 2-horse race at OpTic. Not like it matters, right? Because, you know, if you win, you win. If you lose, you lose. Doesn't really matter who the best player is, who the worst player is. It is a team game after all. But Dashy and Huke probably have been their 2 best players now for a little bit of time. You could even argue this was true when Huke was on the team at the start of the year. Dashy definitely had a slump. And, well, I mean, everyone had a slump, right? But since PRED has gone and since Kenny's gone, Dashy really seems to be back to form. I mean, this map here, he goes 33-18 for the win on the Hacienda. The win they got on the Protocol, he went 34-25 with 2 minutes in the hardpoint here. You know, good map for Shotzzy there as well. They won this is the red card, obviously, 251-44. Dashy goes 38-22 with 2.5 minutes in the hill. So, you know, that seems to be the strategy right now for OpTic. Dashy, not only are you going to get the hill time, but you're going to basically do everything on the map as well, which is pretty crazy, really. Like, I think Skyz just was kicking his feet up this map as they won it by 100 points. They lost the Skyline. This was close. Dashy still, though, was 39-32. Rougher map here from Huke than you might expect on certainly Skyline. I think it'd be pretty good for him. And, you know, I'll just go full screen for this one so you guys can actually see what Rocker are up to as well. Geo, this map was 42-30. And, okay, this wasn't OpTic's best map, and they lost pretty marginally, though, despite getting relatively heavily outslayed because Huke was kind of significantly negative. So, yeah, just an interesting set of scrims as expected, frankly, between these couple of teams. And in the controls, they dominated the Hacienda. This was a 3-0. Skyz had a mega map here, and the other 2 maps were really close. Dashy had an uncharacteristically double negative map here on the Protocol. This was a crazy map, by the way, for Nero. He went 44-26, and Geo was 40-26. So, yeah, it wasn't Kenny's best scrim set of all time, but it doesn't obviously really matter. And it is scrims at the end of the day. But there are always some things that you can take away, whether it's a player that's looking really good and, you know, feeling themselves in the current team structure, whether it's the way that they're approaching the gameplay in terms of who's playing the objective time and stuff like this. So it was a close scrim set. In the end, it was a tie, although I think OpTic will be you know, if they played like this for another 12 maps, then OpTic would have won the majority, I think. And they also scrimmed Thieves just after that as well. Now, this was, you know, they played a couple of hard points, couple of controls, couple of search and destroys. They split the respawns, and they lost 2 very close search and destroys. So, you know, very interesting. Thieves obviously looking real good. This is the protocol that OpTic lost. Huke had a really good map here, 38 in 25, though, for the L. And, you know, Shotzzy was just doing whatever he wanted, 11 seconds in the hill. And then they won this map on the Skyline. Of course, Huke bounced back after a difficult one against Rocker with a 39 in 27. So, yeah, I think based on, it's my feeling and many feelings that probably Huke or Dashy are the strongest players on OpTic as it stands. They split the controls, and there was some scoreboard related, you know, trickery going on here. I think this map was around about right that they won on the protocol in the end. So yeah, interesting day for sure. JP though was suggesting, and I think he's not wrong at all, that, you know, there is often a lot of, you know, overreaction. I think reaction is fine because there are takeaways from these scrims, but it's, you know, you tend to get the fan perspective of, oh, we're so back, and then the next day it's like, oh, it's so over, right? And you get that again and again and again. And so at the end of the day, some days the scrims are good, some days the scrims aren't so good. It is what it is. So JP's perspective is like, look, there's so much reaction either way. Just wait for the games and see how it translates into reality. Then you can overreact to the games if you want. And, you know, frankly, I think that when OpTic were going through their struggles, the reaction of the fans was arguably not enough. Like, I think that OpTic were clearly, I mean, I don't know, it felt like OpTic as a team, they weren't reacting as well as they should have done to what was clearly a dire situation. And the fans, even themselves, may not have realised it until it was a little bit too late for the team. Octane actually was talking about this as well and says that as far as he's concerned, Kyler's been the best player when he's been on the team. So I think I would probably argue Dashy right now. I think you can certainly argue Huke as well. Intrigued to your thoughts in the comments. Certainly you couldn't really argue PRED for any of the season, right? But we are going to get this matchup in a couple of days' time because now he's on the Falcons. Huke's now at OpTic again. And, well, it's one of the big storylines of the weekend. So these are the games of the weekends. Falcons play OpTic tomorrow. FaZe, Heretics, Breach, Gorillas, Cloud9, Thieves. You know, again, it's another great weekend of games. A lot of these matches are very, very important for at least something. Okay, FaZe Heretics, maybe you think whatever, but at the end of the day, Heretics play 2 games, OpTic and FaZe. If they lose both of them, their World Championship ambitions are looking a little bit shaky, to say the very least. Cloud9 need a big bounce-back weekend. That Rocker Cloud9 game is going to be huge for the World Championship. And we've got some theoretical bangers intermingled in there as well. Certainly Thieves versus Ultra should be a good one to close out the weekend too. But we'll just start with today. OpTic play Heretics, a team that of course has given them trouble plenty of times in the past. Will OpTic win the series? I think that they should, but also Heretics have the new team. They've got Super in the team now. They do, I think, look better and probably will stay better because of it. Should OpTic have enough to get the job done? I think so, but it maybe won't be as clear-cut as some people expect. Surge Gentlemates, it's the new Gentlemates team. Look, will they have a chance against Surge? I think the new Gentlemates team is better. Sure, I like the Johnny pickup. I think the FeLo pickup is fine as well. Is it enough? I'm not sure it is. And if things behind the scenes are still a bit of a mess, then it's a problem. Ravens Rocker, though, is a fascinating series to close out the day because Ravens have looked shaky, let's say, recently. Of course, this was the team that Kenny was maybe going to go to, but eventually he didn't. Vivid therefore stays, and internally at that team, things must be a little bit interesting. Whereas Rocker seem to be on the uptick. So, you know, I think that I'm going to lean Rocker's way on this one, but it may, again, come down to search and destroy. And if Rocker's search isn't quite as strong as Ravens is, which you might expect it to not be as of yet, then maybe Ravens win it in 5. But, you know, any other result I think will probably go the way of Rocker right now, which would be massive again, as I say, for the World Championship if, you know, Ravens aren't at risk. But if Rocker can get 10 points on the board tonight, that'd be a really big deal for them. So very much interested to your thoughts on all of this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.
And then do mushroom chicken.
Wait.
And honey walnut
Can I
shrimp.
get a Dr. Pepper?
Yo, no, don't do that. I'll cringe. Don't do that.
We're
Don't do that.
We're 3 guys.
That is all.
Can I get a Dr. Pepper?
Yo, chill.
Wait, what'd you say?
You come to the window.
Oh, okay, thank you.
My bad, Kylie. This guy is just going crazy, bro. Wait, all right. Next drive-through, we'll do that.
Okay.
Don't say anything. Wait,
let me act hard.
I don't have. I swear to God, I don't have my wallet.
Well, you Apple Pay, bro. You do everywhere.
Here,
Oh, you're doing the girl voice?
Yeah. That's why I was laughing. My
I was
bad.
like, can I get a Dr. Pepper?
Yeah, chill. Chill.
Can I get some?
Oh, yeah, 3 plates.
Yeah.